I discovered, with a crushing blow to my chest, that the man I trusted had been weaving secret liaisons behind my back, and as I carried my hidden child in silence, he vanished, only to reappear years later demanding a share in our son's future. I'm 28, and every day Jack's laughter, my 7-year-old miracle, reminds me of the life I built despite the betrayal. His father, my former love Zach, also 28, remains blissfully unaware of the secret that redefined both our lives. We first kindled our romance amid the cluttered corridors of college, and soon after graduation we secured a humble apartment, a sanctuary where I believed our future shone brightly. At least, that's what I thought. While I clung to promises of commitment, his heart wandered in murkier realms. When I broached the subject of marriage one quiet evening, I never imagined that within a month I'd learned he'd sent clandestine texts to his ex, complaining bitterly about how clingy I had become, and even confessing his desperate need for a break, all while plotting a sultry getaway with her. I only uncovered the sordid affair when, in the dead of night, her reply lit up his phone while he slept. Though he scrambled to change his password, my trembling fingers unlocked a trove of weeks' worth of messages, snatches of flirtation intertwined with stress and longing. The shock shattered me. I wept myself to sleep, drowning in heartbreak as the love I'd thought eternal crumbled before my eyes. After nearly 3 years together, I'd envisioned marriage as our inevitable next chapter, a subtle promise that we were on the same path, yet he was reading an entirely different script. That one devastating night, I allowed myself a torrent of tears, only to don a mask of calm by dawn. When the day came for his scheduled trip with his ex, I silently resolved to linger for a few final days, then, as he chased forbidden romance, I would vanish without so much as a goodbye, sparing him an agony he did not deserve. Claiming a business trip as his excuse, even though neither our budding careers warranted travel, I said my feeble farewell and, with everything half paid and in disarray, packed up my life in a single day. I retreated to the familiar embrace of my parents' home, and soon after, a dear friend in a distant state became my refuge. I confided every painful detail before booking a one-way ticket to her city. Graciously, my employers allowed me to work remotely until my notice period expired, and in the interim, I secured a new job and slowly built a fresh apartment of my own. Every step of the way, my friend's unwavering support lit up the darkness. I severed every thread linking me to Zach, changing numbers, blocking him on every platform, warning friends and family so that not a whisper of him would reach my ears again. I craved oblivion, certain that cutting him off would consign him to a distant, unreachable memory. But fate, with its cruel twists, had one more revelation in store. A few weeks into my new life, I discovered I was pregnant. A missed cycle and a hurried test confirmed a glimmer of hope amid the ruins. Choosing to keep the baby turned out to be the most radiant decision of my life. Suddenly, my bleak world transformed, my job flourished, new friends welcomed me with open arms in a vibrant city, and for the first time in ages, I felt uplifted by the promise of a future. Rumors soon reached me that Zach was desperately searching for me, with well-meaning friends urging me to confess the pregnancy. But I clung to my resolution. I would vanish without closure, denying him even the chance to claim a role in our child's life. 7 years have passed since that fateful departure. Jack now strides through 2nd grade while I thrive in the very company where my journey began. I found solace in the arms of Mike, a banker whose kindness and integrity shine far brighter than the memory of my slimy ex-life, it seemed, had finally begun to settle into a new rhythm, until 3 days ago when, with an unanticipated force, Zach reappeared at my door. Clutching legal papers like a weapon, he demanded full custody of my son. Shock seized me as I realized that every carefully hidden detail of my past was unraveling before my eyes. He thrust the documents toward me, and in that surreal moment, one that felt ripped from the depths of my darkest nightmares, he offered me a chilling ultimatum: either prepare to wage a bitter court battle or relinquish Jack so that, in his eyes, he might give our child a better life. Without another word, he vanished, leaving me standing in stunned silence for what felt like an eternity. Jack, blissfully unaware, was safely at school that day, spared from the bitter confrontation unfolding at my doorstep. Now, 3 days later, I remain in paralyzing uncertainty, having shared my burden with no one. I recognize that my past choices were far from perfect, yet Jack has only known my unwavering love, a love that has always shielded him from the void left by his absent father. Despite my inner turmoil, I trust that no court will tear him from me. Still, fear gnaws at my soul as I realize that even sharing this truth with Mike has plunged our relationship into painful honesty. I confess that I'd once lied, claiming Jack's father had never desired a part in his life, when, in truth, I'd never even asked Zach about fatherhood after his betrayal. Mike, though understanding the depth of my pain, couldn't help but condemn my deliberate act of exclusion. He insisted that I owed Zach a monumental apology, perhaps even a shot at joint custody if he would relent. Yet, I remain unconvinced. Legally, Zach has no claim over our son, and morally, I can't forgive him for the hurt he inflicted. In this swirling maelstrom of guilt and defiance, I find myself turning to the unknown voices of the internet, pleading for a fresh perspective on the choices I made in the aftermath of Heartbreak. But the fallout was only beginning. Update 1. It's been a week since Zach's unwelcome arrival, and revelations continue to darken my horizon like gathering storm clouds. I stand resolute. Not a scrap of custody shall be surrendered to him. He has forfeited any right to be part of Jack's life. The online outcry was divided, yet I choose to embrace the support of those who understand that his betrayal, cheating with an ex he'd left behind for a fleeting fling, renders his demands utterly unjust. He had once been entangled in a brief affair with a woman from his past, a relationship that ended as soon as he craved something casual, and then, just 4 months later, he leaped into our 3-year romance. To discard a meaningful history for a transient spark that fizzled in less than 6 months was a blow too bitter to ignore. His venomous words, labeling me clingy, needy, and emotionally dependent, were spewed in whispered texts meant to win over his ex. I had only dared to ask about marriage, a natural inquiry after years together, yet his explosive reaction revealed his incapacity for commitment. If he couldn't commit to me, how could he ever commit to a child? In the end, I was under no legal obligation to reveal my pregnancy. Perhaps my choice was ethically murky, but it was the beacon that led me toward a better life. Had he been a decent man, our journey might have continued together, and we might have shared parenthood. Instead, he squandered our love through betrayal, leaving him unworthy of either my love or a role in Jack's life. Though many disagreed with my decision, I remained steadfast, and those who truly cared respected my silence. Then came the ultimate betrayal, a revelation that left me reeling. My own mother had leaked my whereabouts to Zach. I was stunned when, without any prompting, she admitted to contacting him after a friend informed her of his recent promotion. Though Zach had once sought my mother's aid and been rebuffed, this time she reached out on her own accord. Her reasoning was that I would never be able to shoulder the mounting costs of raising a son on my own as Jack grew older. Without consulting me, she assumed that Jack needed his father in his life, an idea I would have loathed. Her betrayal stung more deeply than any infidelity ever could, leaving me questioning the very foundation of trust. But the repercussions of these betrayals were far from over. Update 2. Now, I face a new chapter as Zach and I are scheduled to meet with a court-appointed mediator for our custody dispute. The meeting set for the day after tomorrow fills me with a dread so intense I can scarcely breathe. I've tried to explain everything to Jack, though his innocent mind struggles to grasp why his father is suddenly back. For him, I've always said that we simply left him behind, assuring him that if his father ever truly knew him, he would have loved him. I had planned to unveil the whole truth on his 16th birthday, when he'd be mature enough to decide whether to welcome Zach into his life. Now, with the threat of court looming, I must begin preparing him for a painful reality far sooner than I'd ever intended. For now, Jack only knows that his father has returned and wishes to spend time with him, a concept too abstract for a 7-year-old to fully understand. I tremble at the thought that he might grow too fond of the idea of a father he barely knows, for I simply cannot bear to lose him. In the midst of this legal and emotional tempest, my mother has bombarded me with desperate calls and texts. She even uses my father's number, knowing I wouldn't dare block him. My dad, my unwavering pillar of support, has voiced his sorrow and anger at her betrayal. Their own marital strife now simmers on the surface, with my father hinting at a temporary escape to a relative's home, perhaps even leaving my mother, though after over 30 years together, the ties are not so easily severed. Between my parents' bitter discord, the growing distance between Mike and me, and Zach's legal machinations threatening to snatch Jack away, every element of my carefully reconstructed life seems to be crumbling into chaos. And as the storm gathers, a new chapter of heartache beckons. Update 3. In a painful twist, Mike and I have ended our relationship, a breakup that followed an explosive confrontation over my refusal to apologize to Zach. For nearly a week and a half, his demeanor had grown cold and distant, until our final conversation erupted into a torrent of accusations. I did apologize for the lie I told about Zach's relentless pursuit, a lie spun to hide the truth that I deliberately shielded him from learning about my pregnancy and our child following his betrayal. Yet, beyond that one deception, I felt no regret. Had he ended things solely over that, I might have understood, but he insisted he could not stand by a woman whose moral compass, in his eyes, was so utterly compromised. His argument was that by denying my cheating ex even a chance at fatherhood, I had inflicted a cruelty that could never be forgiven. What began as a calm discussion soon spiraled into a bitter, ugly fight, culminating in him storming away with a final, venomous epithet. At least that chapter is now closed. In the meantime, the custody meetings have progressed, and, to my guarded relief, they seem to be leaning in my favor. In our very first session, it was established that my reasons for keeping Zach at bay, his betrayals and the cruel words he once spat behind my back, would not be held against me as I moved forward. We reached a tentative agreement. Zach might be granted supervised visitation a few times each month, but strictly on my terms, for I have been Jack's sole guardian since the day he was born. Though the process remains unresolved, I await the next meeting with a fragile hope that soon all will be finalized, and the past can finally be laid to rest. After that initial session, Zach even approached me with a remorseful apology, confessing that his impulsive actions and fear of commitment had driven him to folly. I chose to forgive, letting the past drift away like water under a bridge. Still, my heart remains anchored in the singular goal of preserving Jack's happiness. I cannot, in good conscience, allow him to resent me for keeping his biological father at arm's length. But just when I thought clarity was in sight, life threw yet another curve. Update 4. Today brings a surprising twist. Zach and his wife have agreed to an arrangement where they will fly out to meet Jack and spend time with him a couple of times a month, nurturing a tentative relationship as he grows older. Their gratitude toward me is almost tangible. A flurry of thank you cards and small gifts arrived soon after I finally lifted the digital blockade. Though we are not friends, co-parenting demands a cooperative spirit, however awkward, as we navigate our roles from different cities. Perhaps, by the time we revisit the custody arrangements again, I might even return to my hometown, a place I once fled from, now beckoning me back as the past loses its grip. Ironically, while I sought refuge from my history, I now face the possibility of reclaiming a life free of its haunting specters. Meanwhile, the discord at home deepens. My parents are now on the brink of divorce. My father's hints at leaving, a temporary retreat to a brother's home, speak volumes about his disillusionment, while my mother's relentless need for control has, once again, betrayed the very essence of family. Even as my mother's actions remain indefensible, I long for the calm that follows a storm, confident that a quieter life awaits, a life where my conscience is clear and the ghosts of the past are finally laid to rest. Yet, even as tentative peace glimmers on the horizon, new challenges lurk in the dark.